results, and I think if we push through, we may be all over fairly close to lunchtime.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can just introduce yet a new face. Down the end of the table, we have Ruth Buckingham. So Ruth is our Manager of Social and Economic Science. So our economists that we have in-house. We have some councillors around the table. Ruth, whose very clear direction is we need to have the economy front and centre. It's great doing a lot of this policy, but what is the cost? Who's going to bear it? And what is that cost over time? Ruth also has responsibility for our social scientists. So as much as we do in the environment, we think about how much it's going to cost. We also have social scientists in the house that help us understand who the community are and what they have to say. Online, we have Dr. Melissa Hackle, who is a senior scientist. Melissa is the top right of the screen there. This is a survey that's been going, that we do every 3 years for almost 20 years. So it's going out to the community, asking them what they think rather than, I guess, us believing our own rhetoric, which we tend to do. It is a check-in to just see, hey, if we were investing all our money in one part of the business and the community actually said, well, this is really important to me. So it's a great longitudinal survey that we have done. We bring it to council prior to starting the survey, so councillors can make some suggestions about the survey as well as maintaining that integrity of a 20-year-old survey. So, Ruth, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything prior to passing over to Melissa.
If you push the right hand side, you get a red light. You're away.
That's great. Thank you very much for your introduction, Tracy, and it's my pleasure to be here to support Dr. Melissa Hackle with her presentation today. Unfortunately, Melissa has been unwell, so she's presenting from home, but I did want to just alert you to the fact that we've just this week received our printed copies of the full report, so anybody who's interested, just let James know perhaps, and we'll be able to get those to you. But I'll hand over to Melissa. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. Can I have my first slide?
We're just getting that up now, Melissa.
Okay. Kia ora tātou. I appreciate the opportunity to present the results of the Your Environment What Matters survey. As Tracy said, it's conducted every 3 years to understand community-wide perspectives on environmental issues of relevance to WRC, including public perceptions of the state of the environment, climate change, waste issues, the relationship between the economy and the environment, public and private pro-environmental actions, as well as issues of environmental governance. Because it's conducted every 3 years, it provides trend data on shifts in attitudes and perceptions over time. So I'm just going to briefly outline some key findings from the 2022 survey, which is now available on the WRC website. You will notice that the results are also reported according to city and district, so that provides an indication of differences in perceptions and attitudes between residents in different districts. But the area sample sizes are relatively small, so these are indicative only. The survey is reviewed every 3 years to ensure that the questions remain relevant and useful, and this year a number of changes were made to the survey and the reporting. For the first time, a thematic analysis of the open-ended questions was conducted to update the data-generated codes, and this increases the reliability of the survey because environmental issues do change over time. In 1998, for example, respondents were most concerned about the ozone hole and pesticide use. The way that issues are discussed also changes, such as the movement away from the use of the term global warming and the uptake of the term climate change. Can I have the next slide, please? The survey report provides an account of respondents' perspectives on the most important environmental issue facing the region today and in 5 years, and the results from these questions can flag environmental issues that are attracting increasing public concern. And the bar graph shows the results for 2022. The greatest percentage of respondents identified water quality as most important. These responses were analysed alongside responses for the follow-up question, why is that? This additional analysis provides an account of how those surveyed see the issue that they identify as most important in relation to the other issues and what they think are the causes and impacts. For example, while only 4% thought urban and population growth was the most important environmental issue today, responses to the prompt "Why is that?" show that urban and population growth was a key sub-theme for themes of water quality, water availability, and waste. Biodiversity loss also appeared more often as a sub-theme of water quality, urban and population growth, and climate change. Availability and security of supply was also frequently mentioned by those who answered water quality, indicating that there is some understanding of the relationship between water quality and water availability. The most frequently cited source of water quality decline was agricultural runoff. Many comments reflected on the importance of water quality for the region's social and economic well-being. Concerns about water availability were expressed in reference to water shortages and recent experiences of restrictions. Droughts and climate change are frequently mentioned, as well as pressures on water resources and infrastructure from population growth and housing developments. Some expressed concern about electricity supply, water being wasted or exported, and pressures to allocate more water for Auckland. Results do show some changes in the way that key issues are perceived. For example, the extent to which waste issues are considered important today and in 5 years is relatively consistent with 2019 results. But the qualitative analysis shows a shift away from general comments about rubbish and pollution to comments questioning the sustainability of landfills and the impacts of population growth on the capacity of waste services to manage increasing volumes of waste. Those who felt climate change was most important often drew attention to the broad range of impacts and commented on the need to act now to reduce the severity of future impacts. Those who thought urban and population growth was most important were also concerned with the impacts of development on waste emissions and loss of green spaces and food-producing land. Those who felt air quality was most important were mainly concerned with vehicle emissions, both from the perspective of human health as well as climate change. And can I have the next slide, please? Environmental attitudes are measured in the survey using the new ecological paradigm scale, which is a widely used measure of environmental attitudes and behaviour. This measure provides an indication of the spread of basic ecological beliefs across the sample. Basic ecological beliefs have a strong relationship to people's awareness of environmental problems and their support for efforts to solve them. The NEP scale comprises 3 dimensions: the balance of nature, limits to growth, and relations with nature. And respondents are asked the extent to which they agree or disagree with 6 statements, such as, for example, the balance of nature is very delicate and easily upset. The results are then used to rate those surveyed as pro-ecological, mid-ecological, or anti-ecological. And the graph shows the distribution of these ratings across the sample of 1,026 Waikato residents. And you can see in 2022 that 27% are rated pro-ecological, 56% mid-ecological, and 18% anti-ecological. The report now offers an additional analysis of key differences in the way that those rated pro, mid, and anti-ecological responded to all sections of the survey. And some key differences in their patterns of responding include levels of concern. So those rated pro-ecological show the greatest level of concern about the state of the environment. And those rated anti-ecological are more likely to select neither concerned nor unconcerned or don't know when asked about their levels of concern than those rated mid or pro-ecological. Those rated pro-ecological were more likely to undertake a broad range of pro-environmental actions, but the difference between those rated mid and anti-ecological was not significant in this respect. When we compare the types of actions they reported taking, there was some clear differences. Those rated anti-ecological were more likely to complain to council, join an action group, educate people on issues, or take an environmentally friendly action such as planting trees. Whereas those rated pro-ecological were more likely to make a formal submission or to sign a petition. Those rated pro and mid-ecological were much more likely than those rated anti-ecological to see the fortunes of the economy and the environment as linked. For example, a healthy environment is necessary for a healthy economy. 89% pro-ecological was 89%, mid-ecological 83% agreed with the statement, and only 64% of those rated anti-ecological agreed with this statement.
Mr. Chairman, I just wonder if I can interrupt. We have, well, I know I have, and I'm sure all the others have taken their time to read the report and the percentages and noted some interesting results. I'm just wondering if we need to have all the percentages on that.
And the issues of time.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay, I haven't got much further to go. I can skip on to the next slide. Interpreting the rise in middle position answers. So beginning in 2019 and continuing in 2022, we do notice a steady rise in those who select depends. And this increase reflects a movement away from the polls, so that's strongly agree and strongly disagree, rather than a shift from don't know. And the increase in proportions of those who select these positions can be interpreted as reflecting a mix of things, including those who feel less intensely about an issue, those who hold a more nuanced perspective, and or those who hold inconsistent views. And when you read through the report, you may be disappointed to see some declines in levels of concern for various environmental issues. However, in general, there has not been a corresponding increase in those who are unconcerned. Rather, the shift has generally been towards the middle position of neither concerned nor unconcerned. And despite these shifts in levels of concern, the levels of concern for indicators across all 13 level of concern questions do remain high. There has been some increases in don't knows, particularly when asked to say whether environmental attributes have become better or worse.
Just one
So
more
to finish up,
Melissa. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
To finish up, I would just like to point out that the increase in middle position answers should be interpreted within the context of 2022, which included resource management system reform and the Three Waters program, as well as increasingly difficult debates about how to respond to climate change. So given the range of environmental issues that were politically salient, and given that the solutions often imply transformative change to present ways of living, it's not surprising that we are seeing some changes in patterns of responding in the survey. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Melissa. And I'd just like to acknowledge that we do invest in these surveys and they do inform us on information from our residents and ratepayers out there. So there is an importance with this information. And just because we're hurrying you along doesn't mean that we don't take it seriously. I've got one quick question and then I'll come to councillors around the room. But I just wonder with water quality, you know, we covered in people worried about water quality from industry, towns and also the rural sector. But for me in the Thames Coromandel, we have basically what I consider a fair amount of pollution and water quality issues via wild animals, runoff of silt from our native and plantation forests. And I just wonder if that's something we may not need to look at further down the track that may skew some of these results. Just interested in the comment.
You want me to respond to that?
If you wouldn't mind, if you think it's of value or not.
Sure. I think that's something we could consider for, and every 3 years we do review the questionnaire, and at that point questions can be added or changed so that we can investigate new issues as they arise. Does
Thank
that
you.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does, Melissa. Yes, thanks. Oh, sorry. Councillor Dunbar-Smith.
It's just this idea of pro and anti. Obviously, that can be reported negatively if you're an anti, and yet I notice that the anti-ecological often will take an environmentally friendly action like planting a tree or joining a group. So,
That's right.
given that we're in the age of rewriting books, to remove objective words, I wonder, do we need to continue with pro and anti, or is there some other way of reframing that? Because the headline will be the antis are increased or the positives are, and that's not necessarily, when you read the fine print, that it might be the antis are just people who go and do stuff rather than just write a submission.
Yes, that's been raised before, but that's just how the scale defines the different groups. So yeah, I don't know what we can do about that. We're using that particular scale. But as you point out, whilst people rated anti-ecological do actually involve themselves in pro-environment behaviour, so that's quite interesting to know.
I think also maybe it's an issue around terminology, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. We could get into a long discussion about what that might mean, but
For sure, another day.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Melissa? We have one online. I think something popped up. Councillor Nicol.
Hi everyone. Hi Melissa.
Hi.
I had 3 points, but on the previous one, because I totally get where Ben's coming from, I did wonder that if we have external comms, whether we have to stay as true to the method terminology, or whether we can put that in the fine print more, that's the method, but we can still use our own terminology, for example. But yeah, it's I understand that when it's an international method, it's officially got to be correct. So items I wanted to raise was, I was concerned about the representation of people that have filled in the survey. I'm just wondering if you've got any ideas around the next survey, how we would boost the youth participation. I think it's like 1% or something, which is and the Māori side of things as well, just to make them more proportional for our community. Do you have any thoughts on that for the future?
That would be really great, because currently we do rely on weightings to get a representative sample,
Yeah.
as you've probably noted. But we do contract that data collection out, so we'll probably have to rely on the capacity of the contractor to achieve that for us, although we're always looking at new ways to improve the survey. This year we did look into doing a kind of a youth pilot, but it didn't really get off the ground. But we may keep investing in that approach, where we might be able to increase our representativeness of youth perspectives.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we can put something in the contract with the provider to say, hey, endeavour to make an effort to make this as representative as maybe that's already in there. But thank you.
Yeah.
Other point was, I suppose the two key takeouts I've got around things is near the end of the report, which is that the public doesn't get thinking that a lot of the public thinking they don't get enough of a say of how the environment's managed, and that there aren't enough opportunities to be involved, really, and that Waikato Regional Council isn't visible enough. So I'm just mentioning to everyone, I'm taking that away as something to really consider, because that's quite disappointing, I suppose, because if the ambition's there and that perspective is there, it just doesn't quite marry up. But my last question, Melissa, was around the air pollution question. I just find it a little bit difficult. I remember we had an air pollution conversation in EPC last year, because the Hamilton City air pollution is declining. Is not as good as it once was, and we had a good discussion, I thought, and so the answer to the question around whether it comes mainly from home fires, as I understood, was really seasonal. So in winter, when there are a lot of fires burning, it can be more of a proportion, for example, but in summer, it's more the vehicle emissions. So I just wonder if we're asking a question there that it's hard to get right, you know, and
Yeah.
are we really learning something if it's not a clear-cut kind of answer?
That's right, and that question has been flagged for review for the next survey for that very reason, because it's really we're not quite getting the results we would expect.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. If there's no other questions, Ruth, do you have anything else to add?
No, thank you. But certainly I encourage you to have a look into the full survey report and bring those questions back to us if you have further questions or clarification required, because it's really valuable when we do. We're already starting to prepare for the next survey in 2025, and we do keep a record of the queries and the comments that you've made and any issues that might arise during that time. So and as Melissa pointed out, we were investigating trying to get a youth voice that was raised when we brought the questions to the council last year. And so it was really, just want you to know that, yes, we always take your comments on board and that we're always refreshing and making sure that the report is relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. And yes, so noted. The comments that have come out and questions around the table today are all recorded, etc. So, yeah, sorry. Yep. So we have your Environment What Matters 2022 survey results report on our table. Do I have a mover to have it received? So moved, Councillor Story. Seconded, Councillor Smith. Got it. Other way around. Moved, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Story. Those in favour? Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Next up, page 231 on your agenda.
Councillors, I know you're in a hurry, and Miffy usually joins us at the tail end of committees and gets a minute if she's lucky. I would recommend that you have a look at this. Councillors did raise last time what are the submissions signed off under delegated authority. So we've been very clear to capture those. Also, I would point you to page 235, which is a quick and easy access if you want to know what we're involved in your patch. That is a modification we did last year to help councillors just have a one pager as opposed to 10 pages of writing. Over to you, Miffy.
Kia ora tātou. So this is a regular report that I will be bringing to each strategy and policy, or Alejandro Cifuentes, who's our other team leader. So we're going to be sharing it between us this time. So our section is responsible for coordinating these submission responses on behalf of the organisation. There have been a lot recently. So at this meeting, I don't go through what is in the report. I just give you any updates that have occurred since then. I've just got a couple here. The Natural Hazards Insurance Bill, we made a submission on that in April last year. That has now gained royal assent. We did do a bit of an analysis, and unfortunately none of our submission points were picked up in the final, but we did try. There is a new engagement opportunity, which is the Resource Management Infringement Offences Regulation. We're still deciding whether to make a submission. If we do, it'll just be in support. It's to support the increase in Resource Management Act infringement fines. So it's some backup legislation to assist us to issue instant fines if needed. We've also had the stock exclusion regulations released, so we also submitted on that one. We had much more success on that one. All the changes we sought have been incorporated. So that relates to freshwater. And in terms of district planning processes, just today the decisions have been released on the Peacock plan change. So we're just going through to see what the outcome is there, but that's the rezoning of the land at Peacock. So that land was already zoned for residential development, but they re-looked at it and have been trying to do a more planned development that is incorporated with public transport and active transport. And there has also been a private plan change for the Te Rapa racecourse to rezone some excess land there for residential. So again, we're looking at that to see whether we need to make a submission.
Thank you for that update, Miffy. As Tracy indicated, councillors, there's quite a comprehensive list of these submissions that have come through the group. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to note, excellent report, self-explanatory. Yeah, it doesn't need a lot more that, and so thanks very much, and happy to move it, sir.
Thank you. So moved, so seconded. Councillor Hughes, those in favour? Opposed? So carried. I'll now move a resolution to move into publicly excluded. I don't think we need an explanation for why, unless someone requires. So can I have a seconder to move into that? Thank you, Councillor Story. Those in favour? All those opposed? So carried. We'll just pause here while a recording